What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the history of AFL and Magic. We had made it through 3 seasons of Madden 11 seamlessly. We added a ton of talent in Madden 11 Season 3, and we were rolling. We started doing highlights where we were putting up stories. We were on, what was it, XFN.com. It eventually became Daddy Leagues, but it was XFN where it had all the stats and box scores from every game. We had our chat on there. It really felt like we were onto something. It felt like we were onto something special. We're rolling in season 4, and we get to about week 10, week 11, and all of a sudden we hit a snag. We hit a fork in the road, and it all came to a very dramatic stop.
Wasn't it?
PlayStation, go ahead.
Wasn't it around Christmas too?
I don't think that's where the timeline was because BDFL ended at Thanksgiving.
Ah, wow, jeez, where was I?
Yeah, so this was like pre NFL draft. So it was already kind of like right into that point where it's like, all right, do we want to keep going or not? But we had so much momentum. There wasn't any doubt we were going to keep going. At this point, it was like, how many more seasons can we crank out? I mean, this is great. And then, you know, the network was down, and for those that don't remember, the network was down for several weeks, I believe, right, Magic?
Oh yeah, it was a long enough time that if you were 25% out, not having to schedule the game every couple of days was like, I've had this for about a month now. I think
Hmm.
I could get used to this.
I think that's what happened. I think a lot of us had been doing the Madden grind for so much, and it was all we knew. And we just got to the point where it's like, okay, wait, I don't have to schedule a game with somebody. I don't have, you kind of take a deep breath and you decompress, and you just, and then as a commissioner, it's also like, well, I know my hardcores are going to still be here, but the guys that are kind of fringe guys are probably going to be leaving. And I know Han actually went out and bought an Xbox while this was down. Like, that's how hardcore he was about trying to get back on and play. Or maybe it was Swag that bought the Xbox. One of those two guys bought an Xbox. I'm thinking it was Han. It was bad, though. It was a bad look to be down for 3 weeks. It was terrible. I mean, the network's been down before, no more than I can remember, for 24 hours. But it just killed AFL. And honestly, by the time it came back up, we were done. Like, I had lost my drive to play. It was April at this point, and Ridge had kind of lost his drive. And I remember telling guys like, "Hey, you're welcome to keep this going, but I'm done at this point." And some guys stuck with it. It didn't last long at all. But what I remember most about the lost season of AFL is Costa. Now, we mentioned on the last show that we had a bunch of core owners join us in season 3. One of the names we left out was Costa. Costa joined us very late in season 3 as the Denver Broncos took over a really shitty roster. And one thing about Costa is he's one of the best GMs in AFL. So he had the offseason where he took over the Broncos, made trades, ran a good draft, built up that team, and then Costa was off to like a 7-2 or 8-2 start. He was gonna make the playoffs, and right then the network went down. And for those of you that know Costa's story, unfortunately for him in AFL, he hadn't made the playoffs up until Madden 16. So it was hanging over his head for Madden 11, 12, 13, 25, and 15. 5 years hanging over his head, but it wouldn't have even been there if we were able to finish season 4 because he was 7-2 or 8-2. And to back that point up even further, a bunch of us, once the network came back up and we kind of got our legs under us again and decided we wanted to play Madden, in around May or June, joined up in Madden City where Trump, Costa, Sonic, Han, and Ultimate. I know the guy's name. I don't want to say his name. I'm Facebook friends with him, but they call him like Ultimate Fan Stop in Madden. Those were the guys that ran Madden City. There was like 3 or 4 leagues there. I think Rilo was a commish there too, and there was just a huge. Go ahead.
Canada.
Canada. What's up, Rilo? And then we had, there was just a huge core of guys that included a bunch of AFLers. And so Costa was in 2 or 3 of those leagues, and it was a star-studded league because it was guy. I mean, it wasn't just you know Han and Bowser who was good and Sonic who was good, but then you also had Ridge, myself, SJR. We were all in these leagues, and then you also had Nino and Chad and other guys that were really good in these leagues. K Will was in these leagues. Costa made a Super Bowl run where he lost a Super Bowl to Han. Costa made the playoffs every year, and I think he would beat Prime or beat Joker. And he was a consistent playoff contender in these leagues, always in the playoffs. So, and that was right after the network went down. So there's nothing in the any kind of logic that would say that Costa wasn't going to make the playoff season 4. So I feel bad for him, and who knows, the way the AFC was set up at that point in time with K Will and Swag being really the only two real threats in that conference, Costa could have made a good run there, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But to me, the best thing to happen here was the Madden City meetup. I think us joining forces with Madden City and really aligning with Trump took the growth that we took from season 3 and just turned AFL into, I don't want to say a monster, but just it almost injected steroids into AFL and gave us the pick of the litter as far as picking members. Would you agree?
Definitely, because they had Jedi Capricorn. I mean, terrible player. Ran a great league, I think.
He did.
Who else did they have? Greener with the 19 R's in his name.
He ran a good league too.
He ran a fantasy league that never even came close to dying for years.
I felt bad for him when they took fantasy out of the Mad. I think that was in 13.
Yeah, he was, whatever he was doing it right, and that was like the only fantasy league around that I could find that would last. So you have 4 or 5 leagues all just located on one site, and then we would kind of outsource people because our brand of I guess humor wasn't exactly kosher with that many leagues in one spot. So so some of the miscreants would see us and be like, "Hey, what's your site's chat page?" And then so we could have people come and just hang out, get on the wait list, start getting the name AFL out there. So it was a huge help.
It was a big help. I do remember, Greener ran a great league, but man, he was a hard ass. Like, I remember one day he banned Ridge in chat for calling somebody a bitch, and we just all lost it. Like, you're going to ban Ridge? I mean, I remember even like Han and Swag. And at this point in time, you have to remember the timeline. Han joined Madden, or Han joined AFL in season 4 in the lost season, but at the point in time, he wasn't like super cool with AFL. There was a big rift between Han and myself that dated back to BDFL and even Trojans League. And even Han, who had a lot more clout in Madden City than AFL, was talking to Greener like, "Hey man, don't be banning guys for saying the word bitch." And and then it just had a huge blow up, and Trump came back and he was, it gave him a headache. But I think overall, the uniting of Madden City and AFL really gave us credibility at that time, because up until then, Trump was, in my mind, one of the best commissioners. He ran a great league. He had a lot of help. Guys like Sonic and Costa and Rilo and Han helped keep that thing going, because I know Trump was even gone for like a full year, or for a full Madden year, like full season. So like a month he spent in Hawaii or something like that. But it kept going. It was a fun league, and it gave us a place to go because AFL was sunk at that point. AFL only went 3 seasons. We had the lost season and never really recovered from it, and Madden City kept going. The thing I remember most about Madden City was Hadley made Super Bowl runs. He didn't win a Super Bowl, but he made it deep runs, and that was not something we saw in AFL. So I think that was a warning sign that, okay, here's a guy that's kind of turned the corner, and he's going to potentially get his name into that elite category going into Madden 12. Costa was a guy I was watching really closely because Madden 11, he was really good near the end. And then in the summer in the Madden City Leagues, he was one of the better owners around. Bowser was a guy that was really good, probably had a lot of red flags as an owner, but with us always looking to try to get the talent level up of AFL, I think we ignored some of those and let him get into AFL going into Madden 12. So Madden City, the meetup there, was a big win for us. And I think in a lot of ways, the relationship that I had with Trump and, Ridge and Rilo and us all meeting up and talking about stuff, it really helped the growth of AFL and gave us a lot of momentum going in to Madden 12. But unfortunately, as we will learn once we start doing the Madden 12 videos, all good things come to an end, and the relationship between Madden City and AFL did not stay strong. Unfortunately, we got off. We'll get into all this later, but unfortunately, there was a little bit of a rift between Trump and Rilo and Ridge and myself, and it lasted for majority of Madden 12, and then Madden 13 we squashed it, and it's been great ever since. But we'll get into that once we get to Madden 12. But the takeaway from this was Costa would have made the playoffs, and the absolute impact that Madden City and Trump's league had on AFL and the growth of it. Because honestly, I think that as much momentum as we had in AFL prior to the PlayStation Network going down, our guys being forced to go to Madden City and hang out with those guys was just like times 10. The amount of owners and us just being able to talk to a bunch of guys and have exposure to a bunch of guys and giving us a pick of the litter as far as who we were going to bring into AFL really gave us a lot of momentum going into Madden 12. So Magic, we've made it through Madden 11, the 3 seasons we completed and the lost season. We survived, and I think at this point in time we realized that this thing was here to stay.
Yeah, see, told you.
Told you. I knew we were going to go 41 seasons. I don't know about 42.
Listen, I was on the commission board. I knew we were solid.
I knew we were solid, even though I came back and didn't have a team after I was in class for 5 hours. All right, guys, we will talk to you next time. And the next time we're on the air, we will be into the Madden 12 era of AFL. And we'll see you then.